A street performer by the name of Will follows his childhood friend, Emma, in hopes of admitting his true feelings towards her one day. Will faces trauma at an early age that follows him into his adulthood. In the opening scene, we see Will, a tall, handsome man with ocean blue eyes. He is a rather noticeable character as the only thing he ever wears are pajamas. Will is trying to hitch a ride as he's missed the train to go back to his hometown. He is headed to see the love of his life, Emma, after hearing that she will be coming back to her hometown to be with her sick father. We also see Emma. She is an actress with long brown hair and big brown eyes. She hops on a plane to her hometown. Waiting in front of a motel, Will gets picked up by a charming old couple who are touched by his story. Amused by the couple's argument, Will watches in hopes of having that with Emma one day. Albert, the old man driving, asks Will whether he has a girlfriend, and what Will says makes the man confused. Will claims that Emma is his girlfriend, but the truth of the matter is that Will and Emma haven't seen each other since they were kids. Will has been in love with Emma since they were kids, and that love for her has never stopped. While Will's riding in the car on the way to his hometown, Emma has already arrived at Carlton Hotel. The taxi driver asks Emma whether she is on the TV show his wife watches, and Emma admits that she is embarrassed about that, as she thinks that it is a horrible TV show. Handing the driver some extra money for watching the show, Emma heads into the hotel. Will shares his story with Dorothy, Albert's wife, in the car, and she gets so touched she wakes her husband so he can hear the story as well. The old man listens as Will begins the story about him and Emma. They used to be very close. They would hang out every day as their houses were only a park away. When they weren't in school, they would spend hours in the park, playing and having fun. Will admits that he doesn't remember talking to Emma, that there was something bigger guiding them, so they didn't need to think about anything. The day of Will's parents' death is something he remembers vividly. He had been in the classroom when the teacher asked them to listen to the news, hearing the tragic news about the train accident. Emma had taken him to the side of the street to wait for his parents' car. The sadness in Will's voice as he recalls the most tragic event in his life can be noticed. Not seeing his parents the whole day, he and Emma had returned back home only to find the house full of people. But Will admits not knowing what had happened. As Will speaks about the tragic event, we get to see what happened on the train. A nasty train crash had occurred, sending people out of their seats. His parents' car had not been in the driveway when Will had woken up the next morning. But Emma's words are what had gotten him through it. They will always be there. You will always be loved. These are the words that keep Will going even in his adulthood. Dorothy weeps and Albert asks her to pull over so he can continue driving. Later at night, Emma calls her parents' house to let them know that she will be coming the next morning. She lies to her mother over the phone that her plane got delayed and her boyfriend Aaron isn't coming because of work. She doesn't want to face them being so distraught. Her mother, Miranda, notices that Emma's not excited or cheerful on the phone, so she asks her if there's anything wrong. Emma lies again as she claims that everything is fine, but 1,000 worries fly through her mind. Hanging up the phone call, Emma stares ahead and doesn't say anything as her thoughts take over. We are taken to Los Angeles the next morning, where we see Emma's boyfriend Aaron. Sitting in a red car on the sideway, he calls Miranda and asks for Emma, but she tells him that she hasn't arrived. Pissed off, he hangs up the call without saying anything. Aaron and Emma are facing relationship problems as Emma's admitted to him that she cheated. Despite Emma being honest, Aaron does the unthinkable and beats up the guy Emma cheated with, not caring about the consequences. The morning seems to be going great for Aaron as the couple drops him off in his hometown. Smiling, he exits the vehicle ready to see everyone and everything he has missed for a while. Before leaving, he takes Dorothy's address and phone number and promises to invite them to the wedding. Dorothy smiles big as she goes in for a hug. Will puts his fedora on and heads into the local bank. Getting inside, he spots his brother and runs to hug and kiss him. His brother Jim notices his coworkers looking at him weirdly, so he takes his brother to his office. Impressed by the office, Will jumps up and down, and that annoys his brother even more. Standing opposite him, Jim lectures his little brother about calling before coming as he thinks that Will is wasting his time. Will tries to kiss Jim and runs up to him excitedly, but Jim pushes him off as he doesn't like his childish behavior. He's really happy to see me, is what Will says, looking to his left. Like previously, Emma's words have stuck with him since he was a child. He imagines his parents being next to him, which is why he sometimes talks to them, despite no one being there. Slamming his fist to the table, Jim demands his little brother to stop doing that or they will have a problem. Will's smile disappears, but it comes back once Jim mentions Emma. Jim thinks that Will's following Emma like a little puppy, and it's bizarre to him how he hasn't said one word to her. A phone call interrupts Jim's talk, so he completely ignores his little brother. Will reads the room and decides to visit his best friend Joe. Walking into Joe's store, Will is immediately attacked with hugs and kisses, as Joe and his wife Dolores are more excited to see him than his own brother. Emma gets attacked with hugs as well, as her mother runs to her when she pulls up in the driveway. Wanting to see her father, Emma heads to her father's room immediately. Her father's condition is bad as different doctors say different things, but one thing is for sure, he's really sick. Her father, being a grumpy old man, wants to be truthful about how things are and claims that he is dying. Hugging her father tightly, Emma admits that she had wanted to come sooner but couldn't find the time. Her father doesn't like all the attention he's getting, but her mother is thrilled to have her back. Over at Joe's store, Dolores asks Joe to come and listen to Will's plan. Joe asks the customers to wait and makes his way to where Will's sitting. Will has finally gathered the courage to tell Emma about his feelings and plans for the near future. Wanting to make sure that it happens, Joe makes Will promise him to do it in the following 2 days. Looking at Joe's son Gabe, Will promises to tell Emma that he loves her, inhales her in his dreams, and feels her in his heart. Being taken away by the sudden words, Joe asks Will not to say those words, but Dolores argues that it's adorable. The customer Joe left on the side comes back and demands service. Joe sees that she's with her husband, so he asks her about Will's words. To his surprise, the woman calls it adorable, as well. After refreshing herself by sitting in the tub, Emma goes to the porch to sit with her mother. A beautiful treehouse sits in front of the porch and Emma looks at it as all the memories come back. The treehouse was built by her father and Emma remembers being the nail girl. Changing her tone, Emma asks her mother whether she was a good girl, hoping for a good answer. Miranda looks at her saddened daughter and comforts her by calling her the most amazing, clever, bright, happy little girl. They head inside, not knowing that they've been watched by Will the whole time. He slides down the tree, breathing heavily, and can't seem to calm himself down. Memories of them hanging out at her house, in her front yard come back to him, and he can't seem to let them go. A car pulls up next to him and getting closer to it, Will sees that it's his brother. Jim's wife wants to have Will over for dinner, so Jim has no choice but to bring him to his house. Breathing heavily, Will sits in the passenger seat while Jim glares at him. Not wanting to but feeling obliged, Jim asks his brother whether there's something wrong, but Will tells him that he is fine. Jim is the only one annoyed by Will's presence because his wife and children love him. Will shows off his street performing tricks while performing juggling tricks. They sit down for lunch and the kids, being interested in his tricks, ask Will how much he makes a day. Everyone being impressed about Will making $40 makes Joe even more upset. He doesn't believe that Will's job is credible, so he asks him whether he pays income tax. Joe's wife Susan defends Will because he doesn't need to pay income tax. Being tired of everyone acting like there's nothing wrong with Will, Joe starts humiliating his brother. Will doesn't have a home, a car, any clothes, or really anything to his name, and Jim thinks that's a problem. Jim asks the kids to go inside so he can have a talk with Will, and Susan knows that trouble is on its way. Tired of Susan's hypocrisy, Joe reveals that Susan had compared Will to a mentally ill guy who was imagining things but couldn't help it. Tears fill Will's eyes as he listens to Jim explain that his situation with Emma is just like the mentally ill guy's one. Jim calls Will's obsession stalking as he tries to talk some sense into him. It is bizarre for him to pretend that it's normal and doesn't want his brother to reflect his delusion onto his kids because life isn't so bright. Wanting to understand the whole situation, Susan asks Will how it all started. Will admits to following Emma everywhere she went after they lost contact. It doesn't matter to him how many times he sees Emma, it's the fact that he is around her that satisfies him. When the night falls, Emma can be seen having dinner with her parents. Despite being crushed, Miranda tries to keep the atmosphere light as she asks her daughter to talk about Hollywood. Richard interrupts his own daughter by admitting to hating the moment and not wanting to be in it. Miranda's heart breaks as she can't believe what Richard is saying. He hasn't seen his daughter in over 2 years and it's unacceptable what he's saying. He tries to explain to her that he's joking, but she leaves the room not wanting to hear him anymore. Joe spends the first night back in his hometown with Joe and Dolores. Before Will goes to bed, Dolores encourages him not to be afraid of approaching Emma, claiming that his panic attack is completely normal as it is just a response to terror. Will wakes the next morning ready to finally tackle his fear. He says goodbye to Joe and Dolores and heads straight to Emma's house. While walking the sidewalks, he remembers the treehouse and how they had boxes containing baseballs which Will would practice juggling with. Unfortunately, Aaron beats him to the house and knocks on the door. Miranda is more than surprised to see him, and not knowing anything about the relationship problems, she lets him in. All hell breaks loose when Emma sees him in the living room. He has come to forgive her and Emma cannot believe the audacity he has when she knows that he has been cheating on her as well. Acting oblivious is what sets Emma off as she starts throwing vases and glass objects at him. Being overwhelmed by the situation, Emma rushes to her room ignoring everyone. Miranda is shocked and doesn't know what to say or do, but the bell ringing snaps her back to reality. Opening the door, she sees Will on the porch but doesn't recognize him. Telling Will to come back later, she closes the door and goes back to Aaron. She takes him to the kitchen while she goes to clean the broken pieces in the living room. Richard comes downstairs and demands answers from Aaron immediately. Being grabbed by the neck, Aaron admits that Emma had cheated on him and Richard is taken by surprise. Outside of the house, Will decides to climb into the treehouse and see whether the old box is still there. Even though the treehouse is a bit run down, Will finds the box almost immediately. After staying in her room for a while, Emma decides to go to the Colonial and talk to Aaron. Miranda is surprised and happy to see her daughter up and wishes her to enjoy some time alone. Richard is tired of her pretending everything is fine, so he mocks her words. Tired of being treated badly, Miranda sits down and begs Richard to explain what he means because she wants to talk about her daughter with him and understand what he's saying. Looking at her with a blank face, Richard calls her unattractive because she's making a crying face. Miranda is in disbelief, so she lets it all out. Screaming at him and claiming that she hates him helps her relieve some stress, and Richard understands that, so he waits for her to let it all out. Miranda realizes what she's doing, so she starts apologizing to Richard, but he is okay with it since he wants her to be strong when he's gone. Will watches and hears everything from the treehouse, so when seeing Emma leave the house, he calls out for her. Emma doesn't recognize him at first, but hugs him tightly once she realizes that it is Willie. She can't believe that she bumped into her childhood best friend, but she doesn't know that he's been following her. Will wastes no time as he invites Emma to sit somewhere, but she declines as she has to meet with Aaron. She suggests they walk for a little bit and Will agrees. Jim looks for his brother at Joe's store and they tell him that he went to talk to Emma. Tired of everyone being delusional, Jim advises Joe and Dolores that they should be honest with Will. He calls Will sick because he talks to imaginary people, to which Joe and Dolores respond that he is talking to his parents. Jim pauses and proceeds to reveal the truth about his parents. Will thinks that his parents went to a Broadway show on a Thursday afternoon and doesn't want to believe that his parents are dead. Jim admits that he doesn't like the fairytale picture Will has formed about his parents, as his father was taking their mother to cancer treatments because of her addiction to cigarettes. Arriving in front of the hotel, Will notices that Emma doesn't want to go in, and she admits that she doesn't, but has to. He admits having something to say to her, but would only do it if she agreed to come to an old restaurant they used to go to. Emma declines the offer as she can't leave Aaron waiting, but Will threatens to wrap himself around her leg and follow her everywhere she goes. Taking it as a joke, Emma grabs his hand and they head to the old restaurant. Emma wants to find out more about her childhood bestie, so she asks him about his current situation. After asking him what he does, an idea pops into Will's head and he decides to show her his talents. Grabbing an apple from each table outside some cafe, Will starts juggling them and showing different tricks to Emma. When they get into the old restaurant, Emma's phone rings and she realizes that she has to go back. However, Will ignores her as the old stools they used to sit on get his attention. Wanting to relive their childhood, Will asks the couple sitting on their stools if they can move over one seat so Emma can sit on it. The guy refuses and it's simply unbelievable to Will how someone can say no. He goes back to the guy and asks for an explanation. The guy tries to punch Will, but he catches his hand just in time. Knowing that he doesn't have a chance against the guy, Will admits that he will lose the fight even if he tries. The couple finds him amusing and they let them have the stools as they leave the restaurant. Will spins Emma on the stool like they used to do, but she notices him talking to someone to his left. Looking over, she sees no one and wonders what he's doing. Will mentions the words she had told him and how they miss her. Her heart breaks as she realizes what a pure soul he is. Hugging him, she starts crying as she remembers that situation vividly. Will gets the champagne he ordered and takes Emma to the park they used to spend every day at. They climb onto the monkey bar and Emma's phone starts ringing once more. Declining the call, Emma asks Will what's happening to her as she feels like she's going crazy. Everything's been so hard on her and she feels like she needs to pretend to stay sane. Will doesn't understand the weight of her words as he thinks that she just has a lot on her mind to cry about. Discarding the serious situation, Will changes the topic by running to the merry-go-round. After spinning Emma for a while, they sit down and Will asks her to touch his leg above the knee. He admits that he doesn't feel anything due to an incident that resulted in him flying off and landing on his knee. Ever since then, he has lost his senses in that spot. A smile forms on Emma's face as she remembers the incident clearly. After enjoying their time on the playground, they start walking back to the hotel. Emma feels comfortable with Will, so she explains the situation that happened with Aaron in the morning. Conflicted, she admits to cheating on Aaron with the person she likes more and doesn't know what to do. She doesn't get much help from Aaron either, as he advises her to say sorry to the one she's hurt. Changing the topic once more, he rushes to the end of the park where the vineyard used to be. He reminds Emma that they used to be happy, giving her a hint about a song they used to sing. Emma smiles and starts the song, and soon after Will joins. Reminded of the beautiful memories, Emma embraces Will in a tight hug, and that brings a smile to his face. Looking at his outfit, Emma remembers seeing the same outfit somewhere, and he confirms it by admitting to seeing her in California. She had put 60 cents into his hat without recognizing who he was. Will admits not saying anything to her because he was waiting for the moment they are in. Confused, Emma asks him whether he's been following her and he confirms her suspicion. The bad thing is that he doesn't realize what he's doing as he thinks it's normal to follow a person everywhere they go. He wants to know that he can see her as he imagines a day of that possibility. Realizing that he's not joking, Emma demands he stops doing what he's doing. She makes him promise not to follow her anywhere she goes, but he still doesn't realize that it's wrong. The world isn't all sunshine and roses. Bad things happen and horrible people exist. He starts talking to his parents, but she cuts him off and begs him to stop. She makes him say out loud that he will not follow her no matter what before she leaves. Devastated, Will stands in the dark as tears form in his eyes. Aaron sits in his hotel room nervously as he remembers what happened in his altercation with Emma's toy boy. We find out what really happens as we see the man being thrown onto a glass table by Aaron, which results in his death. Aaron fled to the town not to be with Emma but to run away from the horrible thing he had done. Emma knocks on the door and a wave of relief flows over him. She apologizes for being late and reveals everything about Will to Aaron. She admits to him following her in Los Angeles and everywhere she went. He can't believe that someone is following her and asks about his name. Unfortunately for Will, Aaron uses his name to drag him into the mud. After Emma leaves, he calls the police and accuses Will of murdering the guy he killed. The Los Angeles Police Department finds the guy dead in his apartment, which shows that Aaron's information is credible, so they decide to arrest Will. Will walks onto the highway, not caring whether he would be hit or not, and tries to catch a ride. A police car comes behind him and the police officer asks for his ID. The ID is expired, so the police officer goes into his car to check for additional information. Soon after, they arrest Will and take him to the station for interrogation. Will doesn't lie one bit. He admits to following Emma and not following her anymore because she told him to stop. They ask him where he had been on the 1st of October and he says he doesn't know. Realization hits Will and he gets up to leave so he can save Emma, but ends up being tackled by every man at the office, and they throw him in the cell. Jim receives the call about his brother and goes out of his way to travel far, just to help him get out. Will is woken up the next morning by an officer who brings him to Jim. Apologizing and promising to pay him back, Will looks at his brother as he can't stop crying. On their ride back, Will continues to cry, so Jim comforts him by saying that he knows he's innocent. All he needs to do is get his act together and a lawyer. Will stops for a second before admitting to his brother that everything is not sunshine and rainbows, and that he knows their parents are not at a Broadway show. Sobbing, Will apologizes for putting his brother through everything. Jim hugs him as he realizes that it's not his brother's fault how he reacted to all the trauma. The brothers embrace themselves as tears fall down their eyes while remembering the painful death of their parents. They arrive at the airport and Jim buys a plane ticket for Will. While waiting for the plane to arrive, Will hands Jim an envelope with cash, but Jim refuses to take it and jokes about him being a banker. When Will finds out that Emma's getting married, an idea pops into his mind. Knowing that his brother is going to stop him if he tries to run, he lies about going to buy some gum. After a while, Jim hears the speaker go off announcing that the plane gate will be closed in 15 minutes. Looking at Will's chair, he notices the envelope with money in it, and even though he looks for Will, he knows that he had left a long time ago. Emma finds herself in a difficult situation as she can't believe that Will would do such a horrible thing and murder her toy boy. Aaron has thought of a perfect plan as it all allies together and makes Will look like a crazy stalker. He tries to change the topic by saying that stuff happens. Sitting in the old restaurant, Emma asks Aaron to wait and not rush things before they get married. She doesn't know her situation with her father, and worrying and rushing are affecting their relationship badly. Looking at the ground, Aaron agrees and Emma suggests he goes back, and she will stay as long as she needs to. The next morning, Miranda gathers the mail, among them a letter from Savannah. The letter is from Will. He asks Emma to call the number on the note, which is Dorothy's number, and that will prove his innocence. Emma does just that and is happy to find out that he is innocent. Unfortunately for her, when she tries to tell her father about it, she finds him flat in his chair. Sobbing, she calls out for her mother, who comes to see her husband gone. Crying, they hug each other as a big part of their family is now gone. Time passes and justice is served as Aaron gets arrested for murdering the young man. Emma goes to Joe's and tries to reconnect with him while he helps her do the right thing. Joe is understanding and says that he knows a lot because Will had told him. Emma admits feeling bad about everything that happened to Will and asks Joe to apologize to him in her name. One rainy afternoon, Jim goes to Emma's house to give her a letter from Will. Handing her the envelope, he gives her a hint about where Will would be performing the following night and hopes that she would go to see him. In his first good love letter, he doesn't ask anything from Emma. Instead, he wishes Emma not to worry about him as he has enough of her in his head to last him forever. His only wish is that life brings her the happiness she had brought him, and to feel the same love he feels for her. Walking around the unknown city, Emma is trying to find Will but seems to be lost. Just when all hope is gone, she stumbles upon two men who happen to know Will and tell her where he will be performing. The night comes and Emma spots Will surrounded by a crowd, doing what he loves. Getting closer, she finally sees the child she had known her whole life, and he notices her, which makes him stop in his tracks. He continues his show and everyone is wowed as they cheer for him to continue. However, there's only one applause he longs for, and that's Emma's. Looking at her cheer reminds him of the days when they were kids and how she used to cheer for him after watching his shows. Getting closer to her, he whispers in her ear, "Are you following me?" which makes Emma laugh. And just like that, it's like they're kids again.